Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. I am Will Stone. He is Chase Caldwell. And as of today, I believe it's 24 days until football season. All I know is that it's 3 weeks from Saturday. So that's what's on my mind. Uh, it's that time in the year where we've got the fall camp updates, we got practice videos of of our players stretching and going through some pretty basic drills, but it still seems like 3 weeks feels so long, but like it just can't get here soon enough. So I'm getting antsy over here, Chase.
Yeah, I am too. I'm sitting here moving around my camera. I have my camera like right where like you're right next to it. That way it makes it look like
Oh,
I'm
that's
looking at
right.
my camera. A little
Yeah.
peek behind the curtain there for the 0 people watching. But the it I didn't line it up quite right today, so I just couldn't see you at all.
Oh,
So it's fixed now.
almost
We're good. We're good.
almost spit my drink out when you said that. Hey, since you said that, we're already up to two. So,
There you go. There you go. Uh,
um, well, pretty straightforward episode today. We're gonna wrap up the A&M roster preview with linebackers and DBs, or back seven as we have on our banner. Um, yeah, unless there's anything pressing that you want to get out before we get into it, I guess maybe some show notes next week. We're going to start the schedule breakdown. We'll do a two-parter there, Monday, Wednesday, and then we have some exciting things in the works after that. But
oh yeah.
um,
More
I guess
big news.
more big news. Yeah, I do have one thing. I I posted my second blog post today at theineligibles.com, and I didn't expect to get a lot of run, especially not right away. But it was about advanced stats, and when I posted it to Twitter, I tagged Bill Connolly, who has been a big influence on me, and I mentioned him throughout the article, and he retweeted it to his large following on Twitter. So there's been some increased traffic on theineligibles.com. So if that has brought you to this podcast, thank you for listening.
Yeah. I just I want to say congratulations, Will, because I know you're
Thank you.
sports hero. You tweeted him, he retweeted you. That's got to be a good feeling. My sports journalism hero. I made him a great logo, tweeted it to him, and then he he didn't even like it or nothing. I got no response. So can't imagine how you're feeling currently because it just didn't happen to me. But
He liked your first tweet, but
he did. I'm still in the camp of I don't think he saw it.
I don't think he
Um,
did. I think he would
but
have used it if he did.
maybe I'll go back and tag him in it and be
Yeah.
like, but we'll see. Um,
Well, yeah. At first, Bill just liked my tweet. I was like, oh, that's kind of him to like it. He probably likes a lot of things. Well, then
yeah,
he retweeted it, and then I started getting like, interaction from people that follow him that have no idea who I am. So it
yeah. I
it,
saw
it,
that you had
it,
some
it was
good
cool.
good interaction coming through there. I saw some of the like replies and people you retweeted. Um,
Yeah, it was kind of shocking, but it's motivating, I guess. Just to keep putting pen to paper, or in this day and age, keep putting fingers to keys and keep writing stuff and see how we do. But um, so linebackers and DBs, um, with with the way that football's played now, it's kind of like there's not a lot of like three linebacker sets, or like even in a 3-4, your outside linebackers are kind of your edge guys. So there's not a like I bet we covered more people in the D line episode than we will today. I would think, just because there's so many D linemen. But um, when it comes to linebackers, back in back in our day, Chase,
mhm.
watching some of those A&M defenses, we didn't have the best linebacker play, and sometimes it was freshmen, sometimes it was walk-ons, and we couldn't get much depth going. Um, but it seems like that's really been the opposite since Jimbo got here. That first year we had Alaka and Dotson, and then Buddy Johnson stepped up, and now Adrian Cooper stepping up. It's fun to watch. It's fun to watch our defense again.
Yeah, it is. And sorry, I was a little distracted there. I went and tagged late kick Josh in that picture again. So it's still super sad you didn't like this photo. Yeah, we had back when we were there. I was a DB manager, so DBs have always been my favorite. And every year I would come in like, man, our DBs are going to be fantastic this year. And even still looking back, I think that group of defensive backs specifically kind of got a bad rep because you heard a lot of, oh, we can't defend the wheel route and stuff. But there was a lot of nuances to the game that we were playing back then um, that led to that outside of just bad DB play. Because I think we had a lot of great defensive backs when we were there.
Hmm.
Armani and Shazer and Devontae Harris and all those guys. So they get a bad rep, but it was really like it just never seemed like we could get something figured out at linebacker. And it
Yeah,
was for various reasons, like you said. But sometimes it was injury, sometimes we were just too thin, sometimes we just didn't recruit any linebackers in certain classes. So it was a weak link of our team for quite some time. So I think everybody has silently wanted that to be. I don't know. I say everybody. I'm just going to speak for myself here. That's what I've wanted the most from our team is the back seven to really be a force to be reckoned with,
yeah,
or to be reckoned with. But it's it's something that I see coming. Like I really do think that this group that we have can get us to that level of defensive back play that I want to see. The Alabamas and LSU's of the world. Through the past history, there was a time where Texas had a really good defensive back group. So you think about some of those different teams that had really, really solid groups. It's almost hard to fathom what it would be like for me because I'm like, well, that's always you kind of always think of it as going to be the weak link,
right.
but with the talent that we have at these two positions, I think it's time that we see that corner change, or we see that we turn that corner. I guess I should say,
Yeah,
because we really have the talent there. We've seen improvement there over the past several years, but it's just been getting better and better. And it seems like each class will get like a 5-star guy to put there,
right,
or really high rated 4-star that comes in and does really good. But then there's still some holes in other parts of corner. We have a hole here, and so we fill it with a good corner. But then now we have a drop on the other end, um, and so I think this is a year that um, we begin to turn that corner if we haven't already.
yeah,
The question for me is going to be, what is it going to look like? Because we lost Elko, so what difference are we going to see in the defensive backfield that might actually help us to turn that corner?
right. Yeah, I'm with you on that. And you know, it seemed like back in the day, like we were always counting on a transfer or a JUCO, or like, hey, we need this freshman to come in and we need him to start right now because we don't have anybody. Um, and it's not that way anymore.
Yep.
Um, you know, I, and it's been with a great D line. It's been with Elko, who's a great DC, but our run defense has been very, very good. And it's due to the D line and the linebackers. And the secondary has stepped up. They kind of had a down year that first year under Jimbo, but bounced back in a big way ever since. And with the talent that we're starting to compile um, at linebacker and especially at DB, um, it's got the makings of one of the nation's best defenses for at least for the next 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think so. And DB, it's ridiculous the speed and talent that we have there. Um, and linebacker, in a way, it could be argued that it's the weak point of our defense, and it also could be argued that it's the strong point of our defense. Like that,
Yeah.
there's it's kind of a weird place because if you look at how, and it's hard too because linebacker, you're never going to have as many players as you're going to have at the other positions. Um, but like if you're looking just on paper and star rankings and all of that, well, that's a weak link. But you look at some of the guys that are playing linebacker for us, and man, they're fantastic players,
Mhm.
and they're guys that really make plays. Edgerrin Cooper, we've already mentioned him, and we're just now to the linebacker episode, and he's going to be an absolute stud. I mean, he already is, and so you've got that's a that's the interesting thing about linebackers is you're not going to have a ton of players at that position on any team. Um, so it can be a make or break type position, but it is interesting to me to see how different our defense has been in the past couple of years. Granted, it may be quite a bit different now without Elko, but um, for a while with Sumlin, we were highly dependent on that linebacker position to do everything. I'll go back to the wheel route I was talking about before. That got us burned a lot, and we would blame the corners, but it really came down to the linebackers missed assignments or something like that. And I don't know, the way that we've played defense the past couple of years, it's almost like the linebackers are there to just clean up. They're not really there
Yeah.
to make the play, and it's kind of a difference in scheme, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not that intelligent when it comes to football to be able to tell you exactly why it's that way. It just seems like we just need a couple good guys at linebacker, and we'll be great because we just need them to do their job and not
Yeah.
be the defense.
Yeah. Well, and like with as strong as the front four is, and as deep as it is, um, it makes it so much easier on whoever isn't linebacker. Like
Yeah.
they've got open lanes, and like there's not a there's not an offensive guard coming to hit them in the mouth, and like they've got big bodies in front of them that are taking up double teams. I think it was Buddy Johnson after the South Carolina game in 2020 in the COVID year, and we just destroyed South Carolina that year. I think they scored 3 points. Um, but Buddy Johnson got on Twitter after the game and he was like, "I hardly had any tackles because like our D line wouldn't even let the guys get to me.
Yeah.
They were making all the tackles in that game because they were
Well,
just so dominant."
and that's kind of to my point there. We had a really good D line, even in the pretty much all of someone's tenure. But it was like pass rush you. We could
Yeah,
pass rush. I can't say that word right now for some reason. We could pass rush like nobody's business, but we had terrible run defense. Like we just could
yeah,
not have any kind of run defense for some reason. And I think I think with this group we've seen, and maybe the change in scheme as well, we've seen it to where it's exactly like what you're saying. You didn't. Buddy Johnson was a fantastic linebacker, but there was times where he didn't even have to make a play because it wasn't needed.
yeah,
So um, and it's where the I just went blank on what the phrase is, but um, the whole is equal to the sum of the parts or whatever.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Where the when every position is good and there's not a weak position, then that strengthens what might be considered the weaker position to be the strong suit. And it's interesting perspective, I guess. But um,
yeah. That's actually that's something that I thought about with just where this team overall is going.
mhm.
Um, and it's like they are stockpiling like 5 stars at every spot. But I think of that 2019 LSU team, like on especially on their defense, like I think like they were all really good, but none of them were like great.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it made them all look better because like the D line did their job well, and it made the secondary better,
Yeah.
and that made the linebackers better. And um, I think there's something to like being greater than just the sum of your parts. Like
Right.
it's like a multiplying effect when uh, and we talked about Georgia's offense last week. When your defense is that good, it makes your offense better,
Yeah.
and takes the pressure off of them. But it's definitely an exciting time to be an A&M fan and to have the roster that we have. Um, I do want to sing. I do want to sing Cooper's praises here for a bit because if we had to, if we had to make a list of the top 3 or top 5 players on this team, um, I'd have to find a place for him in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Like he's just that good. And maybe I don't think linebacker is as deep as say D line or defensive back, but at the top of the line with Cooper and with Andre White, like that's 2 really really good linebackers, and I think Cooper could be an All American by the time the year's over. He's just that like he's the perfect modern day linebacker where he's got the requisite height and size. He's got long arms. He's got speed. He's playing sideline to sideline. He's covering running backs. He's downhill. Like he's really the total package, and
Mm-hmm.
I think he's set for a big year.
I think so too. He's playing his best game, um, and he was very impressive this past season. He's been he stood out at the spring game.
Yeah,
You mentioned he stood out at practice the other day. I think
absolutely.
he's the natural leader that's emerging of this group, that we've seen of our linebackers under Jimbo, because we've seen our linebackers with Hansford and with Buddy Johnson and these guys under Jimbo really come up and be the leader of the defense, and I think he's that natural progression. But the guys that we have there with him, you can't judge them based on stars or recruiting rankings or anything like that, because um, they're to me, at least going off of specifically last year, they really kind of were the next guy up mentality. It was
Right.
like we'd put some of them in, and you didn't see a drop off in linebacker play, and I like that. I look forward to seeing that at every position. But if there's one position I can say that it's really been like that, it's linebacker.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you on that. And like with these other guys, like we just haven't seen them play that much. Like we've seen them in spring games, and
Hmm.
something that's been encouraging, but we just don't really know. Um, the guy that we have seen is Andre White. I feel like he's been
Yeah,
playing. Like he's been getting in the rotation for the past 2 seasons at least. Um, and I think I said this on the show on Monday, but I don't know when I've seen him in person last or seen him up close. But that's a big dude. He's
that's a
much
big
bigger.
boy.
He's much
Yeah.
bigger than I thought he was.
Oh yeah.
He's I mean he's a 4th year guy now. He's filled out. He's been in the weight room. Um, so with those two, like that's a very very strong duo in linebacker.
Hmm.
Um, with these other guys like Chris Russell and Terry and Lee are both 4th year players, and both have showed some flashes. Does one of them find their way into the rotation a little bit more? Um, what about a Martrell Harris who's super athletic? Ish Harris who I think Ish may have been the lowest rated player in the class besides the kicker, and I thought he looked great in the spring game.
Oh
Like
yeah. Yeah.
he went from playing like he played at a small school and was like uh, quarterback, running back, receiver, punter, kicker, holder, uh, safety, corner, linebacker, and
Yeah.
edge rusher, and
Yeah.
then he finally just gets to be a linebacker, and he looked pretty good doing it. So
Yeah.
I think the future is pretty bright at that spot, especially when you factor in they have a commitment from the best linebacker in the country in the senior class.
Yeah, hopefully we hold to that, because we didn't end up holding to that this past class. So,
Right.
um, but that's our big fish so far in this upcoming recruiting class. So hopefully that sticks. So,
Yeah.
um, well, I mean linebackers. I really am confident that at that position. Um, even though there are guys that we haven't seen as much. I just like I said, it's been the position since Jimbo's been here that I haven't had to worry about at all,
Yeah.
and that's really cool to be able to say because for so long it was a meme among A&M fans of can he play linebacker? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and so I really do feel that way now that
Yeah.
it's a position that I'm not really worried about.
Yeah. So I've got a question before we move on. Um, so like as far as like the key to this defense and the key to them being elite once again, um, do you think if both linebackers stay healthy and don't miss any games, do you think this is a top 10 defense, potentially top
Absolutely,
5?
absolutely, yeah. It'd be hard not to be because and that's even if hopefully we don't have any kind of injury at linebacker, but even with some of that, the sheer size that we have at the position, um, and Alante made a joke, backers, aka DEs, like there's guys that we have at on the line that are just so massive that these guys could be playing defensive end on another team,
Yeah. Yeah.
and we got
There's
them
no
playing
doubt.
linebacker because they're so athletic at their size. So, and that's across the board. That goes for the whole defense. So, um, yeah, I do think it can be, but I don't think it hinges on linebackers. I think it hinges on our DBs, and and so that's where whenever I'm looking at okay, how are our corners and safeties gonna play? How are they gonna pan out? I'm very confident there, and that's what then puts me at the yeah. I think we could be a top 10 defense, maybe a top 5 defense.
Yeah.
Um, but I think the linebackers just hey, we need you to fill this role, and we need you to play for the team, and I think they do. I think we've got that position on lock with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you on that. So DBs.
Mm-hmm.
You want to start with AJ?
Yeah. I'll start with both Johnson and Damani.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's two guys that I want to or that I would put up there as being the best in the country, it's those two right away. And that's not even getting into all these other guys that we've got to talk about because there's a lot of them. But those two right there being our glue to this defensive back group, that gives me a ton of confidence.
Yeah.
That is a um I mean, Antonio Johnson, I think he's gonna make a lot of money in the NFL,
Yeah.
and he's gonna have a long career there. Um, he to me has been the best defensive back I can remember watching. I mean, he just really impresses me every time he's out there, and just excites me just to know that he's on our team.
Yeah.
Um, but then Damani's a leader. He's been a leader since he stepped on the field as a
Yeah.
freshman, and that's just now he's a senior, which I can't believe that 4 years has gone by that quick. But
It's crazy, right?
it's having him back is a big benefit to us, and to have those two is being the glue. With I'm sure they'll keep AJ at nickel and Damani back at safety, of course, but
Yeah.
um, that that gives me a lot of confidence in the unit as a whole. But then when you look at the guys around them and the talent that we have around them, man, like
Yeah.
I can't wait to watch them. I can't wait. I'm fully expect to be the defensive back group, like I talked about earlier. Of LSU had guys like that for a while. Texas had guys like that for a bit. Um, Alabama always has really good defensive backs,
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's other teams I haven't called, but that's what I've always wanted to see. But there was a part of me that wondered if I ever would. And looking at the group that we have, it would shock me if they weren't that good.
Yeah. Yeah. On Antonio, talk about Cooper being a top 3 player. Um, Antonio is 1A and 1B with A Chain as far as best players on the team. Um, and I think he'll be a first round draft pick in this coming May in
Mm-hmm.
2023.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the 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 NFL draft analysts that I've seen on Twitter are already salivating over Antonio Johnson. He's like the perfect like slot corner kind of like hybrid player. He's six
Yeah.
three, 200 pounds, but he's big and long arm, but he can run and cover, and he's fluid, and he can come down and hit you. I mean,
Yeah.
like one of our biggest highlights I know was against Prairie View, but he just absolutely crushed the Prairie View quarterback on a blitz. He can do it all, and I thought they might move him back to safety, because I think that might be his most natural spot. But with the emergence of Jordan Gilbert, I think they're going to keep him at nickel, and I kind of love it because you know I want him playing as close to the ball as possible. Like
Yeah.
he's kind of that chess piece you can move him around wherever. You're like if Bama's got a great slot receiver, we can be like, hey Antonio, we need you to cover this guy. Or if you need him to play in the box and play the run a little bit more, he can do that too. Like
Right.
he gives you so much flexibility on the back end. And then Damani, like this is fourth year as a starter. He's picked off two different Alabama quarterbacks in his career. And I hope he continues. Well, I guess it's the same quarterback they had last year, but I hope he makes it 3 out of 4 games where he gets a pick against Alabama. So,
Sure.
um, and yeah, like it is crazy that it's gone by that fast with Damani, because I remember like that recruitment was a big win over Texas in
Mm-hmm.
Jimbo's first full class, and day one starter, started ever since. Has been great. Look, I mean, he'll probably be even better this year, and yeah, I'm excited to see it. But and then in terms of safeties, when you look at depth, like I talked about Jordan Gilbert. He's your starting safety right now. He's taken the place of Leon O'Neal, who's departed, and we love Leon. We love him.
Yeah.
He really grew as a person here, grew as a player, loves A&M. Um, I think Jordan. I think he's good enough to keep there from being too much of a drop off. Um,
Sure.
I think he's got a similar mentality as Leon. He's got speed. He's a physical player, and I'll tell you, like one of the freshmen I love the most out of that whole freshman class is Bryce Anderson.
Yeah.
I don't know if they put him at safety or put him at nickel, but I think whenever we go against those teams like an Ole Miss or Mississippi State that like to go four wide and go fast, yeah, I think we get an extra DB on the field. I think he might be a fresh off the bench type.
Yeah. I think so too. Um, he's more of a ready-made player, but that the other two freshmen and Jacoby Matthews and Jared Kerr, also both very highly rated players,
Oh
very
yeah,
good players. But Bryce Anderson just has a little bit of that. It seems like he's one of those that understands the game a bit more coming out of high school,
yeah,
and not just that he was the best athlete on the field, but that he was very knowledgeable about how to play the game,
right,
and so I I would assume that he would be the one of the group that would be the first off the bench if we need him.
yeah.
Um,
And he played quarterback in high school, and I kind of like that experience. Like like he played quarterback for so long, like he's got that. He's seen the other side of it. Now he can play defense, like
mhm.
when he knows offense so well. I think like most DBs you sign are just full time DBs. Maybe they play a little bit of receiver, but it's typically not a quarterback who's running the whole offense in high school, and then they're
Yeah,
then they're a DB. But it's pretty cool.
yeah, and that's what that's one part of recruiting that I can't begin to understand. Where you could go look at a quarterback and be like, man, he'd make a great defensive back. Um, but we did it with Brandon Williams and
Yeah,
going from running back to and I remember that conversation of because I was there for that one where it was like, well, hey, if you make this move, you're more likely to go into the NFL,
yeah,
and that was a really interesting thing for me to see from coaches, but yeah, how they can evaluate that way, I don't know. I know that there's a process and that they've been doing it long enough that they know how to do it. But
yeah,
for me, whenever I watch the tape, I'm like, how does this translate to defensive back? Like I don't know. I don't know how to view that.
Yeah.
But I'm not that good of an evaluator, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. Well, and as good as the safeties are, I think this is the deepest cornerback roster that I've ever seen at A&M.
Oh, by far. I mean, it's crazy because um, hopefully we'll see Miles Jones play again this year because that last year, not this past year, but the one before,
Right.
he was playing. I mean, I've never been. I just got through saying that I've never seen a defensive back as good as Antonio Johnson, but Miles Jones, his footwork and just the way that he moved was so um, was just I've never seen anything like it.
It
He
was on
he
point.
was yeah. It just he has a perfect technique, and so I hope he gets one last year of being super healthy to where he can really go out and shine and show that, and hopefully play his way into the NFL.
Yeah.
Um, but his counterpart Jalen, oh my gosh, what a what a great player! Came
Yeah.
in, ready made right out of the gate. Uh, everybody during his recruitment, it was like he's probably the most ready made out of any DB in his whole class, and we saw that. I mean, from day one, he was out there on the field and playing um, very well, and he might have been the first in his class to even see the field,
Yeah.
and but he's done good. I mean, he's coming off a sophomore year, so um, I would venture to say I think he played a little bit better as a freshman than a sophomore. Not to downtrodden him, but you always hear about the sophomore slump. If
Right.
he had a sophomore slump, I guess what I'm trying to say is if that was his sophomore slump last year, I can't wait to see what he's going to look like this year.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Well, and I'm pretty
um,
sure he had a surgery on his shoulder in the off season, so
oh really?
it could have been something like that where he was banged up, but just kind of played through it. Because really, when you look back
Sure.
at last year, if he had missed a game, I don't know even who our cornerbacks would have been at that point
Right.
because you didn't have Miles Jones, you didn't have Brian George, you didn't have Josh Moten. Um, you already played a freshman in Tyreek Chappelle. Uh, I mean, it was thin. It was bare bones last year, and like to have the turnaround to this year, like it's such a boost for this defense, and it's competition. Like the guys we already talked about, Jalen Jones and Miles Jones. Uh, if even if Miles was healthy, I think one of them would have been on the bench to start because Tyreek Chappelle's so good.
Definitely.
He was a freshman All American last year, and he's that like Jalen and Miles are big corners, and like they're still great corners, but like Chappelle's that like kind of that prototype, 6 foot, 180, but just like super fluid, super fast,
Hmm.
can cover, loves to hit. I love that about him. But
Yeah.
um, you've got him. You still got Brian George, who
Yeah.
I forget's on the team until I saw him practice the other day, and I'm like, he looks pretty good,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, um, and then this freshman class is just there's there's never been a better class of defensive backs at A&M than this one that we just signed. It's absolutely filthy.
It's an embarrassment of riches for sure. But and that's we didn't even mention Moten, um,
Yeah,
or Deuce. I mean, both of them
both good
are
players.
are going to be great players, and so I expect to see them a lot this year. Assuming, of course, I don't know anything about injuries, um, but yeah, diving into the freshman class, like we got Smoke Bowie, who I didn't see even that we would even land him, and we did. Denver Harris was like there was a time during the recruitment class where we were talking about like what if we landed everybody in Houston, which we did a pretty good job of doing.
Right.
Um, and but it was always like, yeah, but Denver Harris, he's not going to come. And then he's part of the group. Um, but Bobby Taylor and Groves Killebrew too, like all guys that any team out there would be begging to have.
Yeah.
And now, how many of them get like legitimate playing time? I don't know, but I like to think, especially at DB, DB is probably the most rotating position on the field. Maybe D line, you could argue the two, but
Right.
and that's the key on defense is like you want to be able to rotate because you want to rotate on offense too. Don't get me wrong, but on defense, there's an added level of fatigue that you get because every play you're going off of, well, what are they going to do? Versus offense, you're like, here's what we're going to go do,
Yeah.
and so there's a little bit of an added bit of fatigue, and when you have this many 5 stars and 4 stars on your defensive back list, I mean, man, that's crazy.
Yeah. Sorry, I think I just realized that I've been talking into my AirPods the whole time, so I'm a little pissed off about that. But
You have now that you talk in your other, I can tell.
yeah,
I'm,
well,
I'm telling you from my
howdy
end.
and welcome back to the Ineligibles
I,
podcast.
I'm telling you from my end, I never hear it until you make that switch. So like at least your AirPods sound good
Yeah,
because when you make the switch, I'm like, whoa, yeah, it sounds way better.
yeah,
But they normally sound good enough that I wouldn't be able. I need to do a better job of that, I guess.
yeah.
Um, hey, I want to since we got a pause here, I'm gonna answer Pierce's question here. This is a good question.
All
Who
right,
do y'all see as new voice leader for the defense after Leon? Um, I'll say mine, and then I'll pass it to you because you might
sounds good.
disagree. But I think Damani. I think Damani is going to be that senior leadership guy. Um, he's like I said earlier. He was a day one starter, literally. I mean, during fall camp, he was already starting, and so um, I think he's that guy here that he's got the tenure, he's got the experience, and he just needs to be a bit more vocal. And I think we've started to see more of that from him here lately. But I will say, just because I personally know him, he's a bit of a quiet guy in general. So it's
Yeah,
but on the field he is pretty vocal. So
yeah.
um, I do think it would be Damani. Who would you go with?
Well, it's a good question, and I don't think anybody's going to be as vocal as Leon. I think he
Yeah.
might he
Maybe
might be
Bobby one day.
maybe Bobby. Yeah. Um, although I saw that Aggie Cam thing that they do with the players, and it was most talkative, and everyone said Brian George is most talkative. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Interesting to
I
know.
thought that was funny. Um, but if you took Damani, yeah, I think I would definitely have Damani like in that group. I mean, he's definitely a leader on this defense. But I think I'll go Edgerrin Cooper.
Yeah.
I like having a linebacker that's kind of in the middle of everything, quarterback in the defense.
Hmm.
Um, it's tough. It's tough for a lineman to do it unless you're just like Myles Garrett, that's just super respected and you can back it up with your play, and really like get guys to listen to you and whip them into shape. But um, I think Cooper, like he's in his third year now. He's learning a new defense, but I think uh, I think he'll pick that up just fine, and um, I think he's gonna lead the team in tackles and just be all over the place and getting
Yeah.
guys fired up. And between that and like if you leave the defensive line out of it, we know how good they are. But like the trio of uh, of Coop and Damani and AJ, like that's a good trio to have in the middle of your defense, like locking things down and making sure everything's running the way it's supposed to. So it's an exciting proposition. Like this defense is going to be something serious.
Yeah. Yeah. No. No doubt about it. Great question, Pierce. I love it. I love it.
Appreciate it, Pierce. Um, yeah, I think I was jacking my mic. I forgot to answer. I forgot to talk about these freshman guys, but um, it's as good as the freshman D line class was, and we talked about it ad nauseum. But this defensive back haul is just as good.
Hmm.
Like obviously with Bryce and Jacoby and Jared Kerr at safety, but like Smoke Bowie and Denver Harris are like they might both push to start this year. If Gross Killebrew was healthy, he would push to start. I love all the guys, but I liked his film the most out of all of them. I think he may be the lowest rated guy, but like if he's back, if he gets back from that ACL, like back to full like 100% of what he was, I mean,
Hmm.
he's going to be a player. And then Bobby, like I think Bobby could play corner, he could play nickel, he could play safety, he could play strong safety.
He's very multiple.
He is multiple, and we have multiple fronts. We're trying to be more multiple on defense, but I think Bobby's one of those chess pieces to where like if we're good at corner, we can put him in safety. If we're strong, if we're strong at safety, we can put him at nickel or corner somewhere else. Uh, like you said, it's an embarrassment of riches. Like there's so much talent and depth, and they all want to play, but they all can't play. So they're all going to be out there busting their butts, trying to do the best they can to get some playing time. And that's going to, competition is going to breed excellence. And the guys that do play and get on the field are going to be like battle tested, and they're going to have earned it. And
Hmm.
you can really say that for pretty much every position on the team because there is so much depth and competition. Like the guys who make it out of that as starters, and even guys that rotate in, are going to be damn good players.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, and I'll say that to just kind of put a bow on all of this that we've been doing. Like this is by far the most biggest collection of talent that we've ever had at A&M. I mean,
I'm glad you said that.
that's not you can't even argue it. I mean, there's
No,
just
you
no
can't.
arguing it. Um, and so I would love to have the confidence to say like we're going to win the national championship this year. There's enough question marks that make me hesitate to say that.
Right.
Do we have the talent to be able to do it? There's no doubt about it. If we've ever had the talent, if we've ever had the coaching staff, this is the time is now,
Yeah.
to do that. But if we don't do it this year, the talent that we have and how young most of these guys are, next year is going to be even better. And so I don't want to
Yeah.
already put off this year by saying, well, next year. But there's just question marks, and I'm sure there'll be question marks going into next year. But I don't know. It's just it's hard for me to it's hard to distinguish for me because I get excited this time of year every year about we're going to be better than ever.
Yeah.
And in this time I can and maybe even the past couple of years, each year I could tell that we were even better,
Yeah.
This time I know because I've watched this long enough that this is the best collection of talent that we've ever had. So I want to be a realist and be like, oh, but that doesn't mean that we're going to win the national championship. But at the same time, I want to look at it and say, call it what it is. This is the best collection of talent we've ever had. So
Yeah.
it's reasonable to be excited about it,
Yeah. And it is talented and a lot of it is young, but it's not completely inexperienced. But
Right.
um I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to go there to finish this out because I think it's a good place to end. Um, this is definitively the most talent we've ever had. Like if you go watch them guys, if you go watch those guys in person, like we did on Sunday, like it's just a different look. Like this team is big and fast and athletic, and like the way they talked about Dallas Carter in Friday Night Lights, like that's how they're going to talk about A&M because
Yeah.
they're big and they're fast and they're big. and and yeah, like I've never seen anything like it at A&M. I said the same thing last season going into last year. I'm like, this is the best roster we've had. This one is even better and even more equipped to
Yeah.
hold up against a grind of a schedule and reach the other side. And I know a big part of that's quarterback, but I'm having a hard time being too worried about it. Like I
Mhm.
think we have three guys that are capable, and two of them are third year guys, and one of them's a third year guy that's been here all 3 years and been in this system. And like I said about competition, whoever wins is going to have earned it. Like it's not decided right now. They still got scrimmages and practice. Like they've got to go and take the job. But um, and I think people are pointing to next year, and I think so too. I think AM could be favored to win it next year, like going
Mhm.
in like preseason number one with as much talent they're going to have coming back. But um, I'm the same way. I hate next year. Like I want to do
Yeah.
it this year.
Right.
Like
Right.
we might not have A-Chain next year. We might not have Antonio Johnson next year. Like let's do it with this group. Like this
Yeah.
is as good a group as any. So let's go out and do it.
Well, I think you made a really good point there in that. Um, are there question marks out there? Yes. Are they valid question marks? Yes.
Oh yeah.
And you would think that if it's like oh, we're going to
I think I lost Chase. It's storming in Waxahachie. I may have lost him. Let's see if this works. Chase, can you hear me? This is great audio. I'll definitely cut this out on the on the podcast version of this. But if you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook here with us live, we appreciate you sticking along. I'm gonna keep. I'm gonna give Chase. I'm gonna give Chase a chance to hop back on and see if we can get it figured out and close this thing out. But in the meantime, I'm just gonna riff a bit. Um, yeah, so I think we're both in agreement there. I just realized that this stupid thing is on my face. I don't know how to get it off either. But um, hold please. Okay, there we go. It's just me now. Let me shoot a message. Okay. There's Chase. He said, "Internet went out. Bring us home." So I will do just that. I think Chase and I are on the same page. You know, this roster is talented, and there are question marks. There's question marks at uh, offensive line that we haven't seen play. There's questions at defensive line with guys that are talented, but we haven't seen them play. There's questions at receiver and tight end where there's a lot of young guys, a lot of talented young guys, but um, it's there's no reason to not be excited. And once we start seeing games, we're either going to be, you know, we're either going to, you know, have a realization that maybe we're not as good as we thought, or maybe we realize that, hey, we're even better than we thought. So that's why we can't wait for the season to get here, is because when we're able to see these guys that we haven't seen before in action, against Sam Houston and then App State and then Miami, like we're going to learn a lot about this football team. And after that stretch with what we know, then we can get on this podcast and say, hey, maybe next year's the year, or say, hey, no, this year's the year. This team can do it. And that matchup on October 8th against Alabama is going to be as big as any. And we'll get into that next week. There's the schedule is very interesting. We're going to do the first 6 games and the last 6 games on Monday and Tuesday, or Monday and Wednesday, respectively. Because there's 6 games and then a bye week, and then 6 more down the stretch. And we're going to get into that. So we appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you listening to all of our roster breakdowns. And we're excited to talk about the schedule. And we've got some other things coming up as well. But as always, we appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed to all of our channels, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Check out theineligibles.com for some of our written content. And we will see you on Monday.